What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuzzy. I'm here with Dustin Zimmerman, and we are going to be doing the 2026 way too early NFL draft, mock draft. Dustin and me have gone back and forth on if we should do this video because it's really, there's so much insight that we don't have, but we do know that people love watching these and talking about just the players and all the things that could come from all these things. So that's why we're doing it. Because we know you guys enjoy it. So we're going to get after it, kind of get into all these guys and get talking. I did want to show everybody how we are going to be doing the draft itself. And so I'm pulling it up now. This is going to be our draft order. I know that ESPN and all these other big places, PFF, they have a completely different draft order, but I wanted to make this as realistic as possible. Mostly ESPN uses just the Super Bowl odds, and all these other big places, they just use the Super Bowl odds. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we did all the team odds, team win odds. And so if you had the lowest team win odds, which is the Browns right now, they have the lowest chance to win 4.5 games, basically. They're the number one overall pick, so on and so forth, all the way up to the 18th number. And then it's based on Super Bowl odds from 19 to 32, because those are all the playoff teams on the NFC and AFC sides. So this should give you the best representation of what we're seeing right now in the betting market for actual teams making whatever spot in the draft itself. We do have two trades that we'll get into, the Browns with Jacksonville and then the Rams with Atlanta. But if you want to take a second to look at this, you're more than welcome and see where your team's at. We are going to go on, though, and start it off with the first and second overall picks. We did it this way. Yeah, we did it this way because we want to compare a little bit. First guy is going to be Cade Klubnik, and I think that this is becoming more and more normalized. Everybody's kind of putting Cade as the number one overall pick if it is the Browns. The Browns' current roster is Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders at quarterback. Look, Deshaun Watson, I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm expecting him to not be on the team after the 2025 season. He has a no-trade clause. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, they don't have the draft value and stock to warrant, if you are the number one overall pick, not picking a quarterback. So that's why we did go with Cade Klubnik. He's going to be on a team that's going to be a top 4 team, possibly one of the best odds to win, definitely the ACC, but then also best odds, one of the best odds to win the Natty. He could be the Heisman winner, athletic upside. So, and we also don't expect Arch Manning to be out, so that's another reason he is here. And then on the other side is Garrett Nussmeier. He's going to play for his dad, who is the OC for the Saints. That's why we ended up going with him to New Orleans, because that makes the most sense. I don't think they would pick anybody above him. And if they are the number 2 overall pick, that means that their experiment with a young Tyler Schuff and Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, they didn't work out, basically, is what we're looking at here.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Cade Klubnik. When we were texting back and forth, I think Emery said I was kind of the tipping point of, or one of the reasons for the tip of Cade up to number 1. And then Nussmeier, I've voiced my concerns about, but it just makes too much sense with his, you said his dad being the OC for New Orleans. Unless there's some crazy new rule about nepotism that's actually being followed now, I don't see a way around that. So
I also feel like this is kind of a chalk first, too. That's kind of what we're going to see is a couple quarterbacks. We actually have a few quarterbacks in this draft, so we will talk about a lot of quarterbacks. And then some of them won't come out, and then we'll get one of those things.
Yeah,
but
that's
these
also
two guys,
Arch is staying too.
Right, exactly. And these two guys are both going to have to come out, basically, at the end of this year. Yeah. Cade forewent. They both forewent, I guess, their last season where they could have come out, so they will have to come out this next year. Garrett's actually pretty much one of the older prospects in this class.
I was say Garrett has nothing left to prove. He's going to have to come out. There is no way to improve at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go on though. The third team that is drafting is going to be the New York Giants, and I decided to give them the best offensive lineman in my personal opinion. If he doesn't play offensive tackle, he could play guard. I believe that Spencer Fano will be an offensive tackle, the right tackle in that case. The offensive line for the New York Giants is one of the worst units in football. The New York Jets took 3 first-rounders to fix their issues. The Giants need to follow their MetLife family over there. And so Evan Neal moved to guard. He was what was that? I can't remember the draft. That was 4 years ago, I believe. He was the first round pick for them in the top 10. He has not panned out. All of their guys have 50 or 60 grades over the last year's team. Spencer Fano is special to me. So I just really think what we talked about on the offensive line video that we did earlier in the year, earlier this year, that is just, he is so fast, so athletic, so his stock has to rise, in my opinion. I think he should be the number one offensive lineman off the board. He has similar combine upside to guys like Lane Johnson and Trent Williams. And New York just has to fix their offensive line. So, as a second team All American last year, I expect him to be a first team All American this year. And he is a legit player in my eyes right now.
Yeah, dude with already 24 career starts, All American, depending on which one you look at, first team versus second team, like you said, AP second team. He was unanimous All Big 12 first team coaches and AP. He's on every different award list you can kind of look out for that has any sort of merit behind it. Completely agree with putting him here at 3 and trying to fix this dilapidated offensive line the Giants have.
Well, and he's not the consensus first offensive lineman off the board on most mocks, but we just right now in this room, Spencer Fano is our favorite offensive lineman, and we're just going to stick with that until he proves us wrong, basically.
Correct.
Next up is going to be Tennessee Titans. The Titans passed up on Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter in the draft this year to get a quarterback, and we know how important the quarterback position is. But they need help. They were 29th overall in sacks with 32 total, and they lost their best sack leader in Harold Landry. So it's just, they also have multiple 2026 undrafted free agents. They passed on edge, like I said. So adding TJ Parker, who is another Clemson player, currently the favorite edge defender in the class. A lot of people, I mean, everybody basically has him at number 1. I consider him the number 1 edge. I think it's a little bit closer than some people probably, but he's just going to build on last season. He had 12 sacks, 15% pass rush win rate. Love his moveset. And I think this is going to be a guy that everybody's going to want to see at this next year. And I'm sorry, 11 sacks. I apologize.
Love sacks, but like we talked about on the edges video and defensive line video, this is a guy who came in with all the talent in the world and has done nothing but meet expectations, if not exceed them all. Freshman All-American, 11 sacks last year. Expecting him to continue to improve this year. Makes a lot of sense for him to go number 4 here.
Yep. This is kind of like the consensus guy. Like we'd gone a couple chalky players and then a random player, but now we're going to get back to the chalk. Let's talk about the top 4. As we went through them, Browns and Saints have to go quarterback, because if you're going 1 and 2, you probably need a quarterback. Giants are going to fix their offensive line, and then the Titans are going to get an edge to hopefully get some pressure on the quarterback. 29th in sacks, like we said, for the Titans. Next up, 5th overall, Drew Allar. And I think me and Dustin kind of differ on this, but it's a projection thing. Like we expect Drew Allar has all the tools. He's had 2 years to start. I expect him to get better. That's kind of my thoughts. And if you are the Jets, to kind of put it into perspective, if you are the Jets and you're picking 5th overall, that means Justin Fields did not work out. That's why we're putting him here. If you're the Jets and you're picking 5th overall, like, you need more production out of Justin Fields, basically, is what we're looking at. So that's kind of the big thing. If they are picking 5th, Fields isn't the answer. Drew Allar with the big time arm, one of the best pure pocket passers in this class. Reminds me of Matthew Stafford a little bit with the zip and release. Penn State added talented wide receivers, so hopefully Drew Allar can step up and make those plays that we've talked about him not making in the past. And he doesn't have bad statistics. It's just like he needs to consistently make plays and not have 0 yards to his receivers in big games. So that's where we're at with him.
Yeah, Drew Allar definitely has the benefit of playing for Penn State, where he fits into the system really well, and is obviously surrounded by weapons and talent. I know he is also a very polarizing player, because there's some people who are really high on him and think he's going to win the Heisman this year, and there's a lot of people going, why is he even being talked about as a first-round draft pick? So right. I need him to prove with the consistency. He went whole seasons throwing 1 pick, but at the same time, I've also seen him overthrow and make horrible plays. So if he can just put the consistency together, he puts it all together. This makes sense. It just depends what he can do there.
Right, and I'm actually betting on Drew Aller. I think we've been on the opposite sides of the fence with him a little bit. I'm more on the Drew Aller train that he will figure it out mentally because he does already have. It's harder. I mean, it's really hard to teach things like height and
Yeah,
accuracy and like zip and things like that. It's really easy to kind of teach like play progression and development. That's what you do in college. That's the point of
sure.
college, is to get better at those things. He already has the talent. Now we have to
Yeah.
just see him put it all together, like you're saying. So that's why Drew Aller's at 5. We'll go over to the next pick, and I've said it on air at this point, prior to this, that Caleb Downs
Mhm.
is possibly the best player I've ever seen on film.
Yep.
And I'm not running away from that. That is just how I feel. He is amazing to watch. And I was expecting him to not be good or have something wrong with his game. And I just didn't see that. That was, kind of how it went. But, and then the Carolina Panthers need good players because they were 32nd on defense and 29th on offense this last year. So possibly, one of their biggest needs is safety. They have currently 4 on the roster. That's a couple of undrafted free agents, Trayvon Merrick, who was a Raider, and then Lathan Ransom, who they picked up in the draft in the 4th round. Not very good grades. Merrick was a 67.5 and a 52.6 for Scott, the starters. So I just think that adding Caleb Downs, if he does get to this point, because he might get picked long before this because he is that talented. So we're just, projecting good team fits, good players, and absolute, ballers and needs to teams like the Carolina Panthers, who get a guy to fall to them because 3 quarterbacks get taken before him. If you're just talking about talent, he's way more talented than Drew Aller. Does not matter. Quarterback is the most important position on the field. But the Carolina Panthers get a absolute beautiful blessing here.
Yeah, I still stand on the fact that he's probably the best player in college football, all things considered,
Oh,
for
yeah.
this year. I know PFF has him at 2 behind Jeremiah Smith, his teammate, being number 1, which is just unfair on so many different levels. And I definitely can't argue that with how good Jeremiah Smith is. But there's not a whole lot to add here. He deserves to go very high, and number 6 is perfectly acceptable for that.
And then let's go on. The next team, based on odds, or next teams, excuse me, based on odds are now it was not Miami. Miami has moved up. They were actually at 12 when I started doing this originally. They have moved all the way to number 8 next to the Raiders. We'll start with the Raiders. The Raiders going Jermod McCoy. That is because their secondary might be one of the most weirdly put together secondaries I've seen. They don't have true corners, in my opinion. And if Jermod McCoy, because me and Dustin talked about this, and I texted him and was like, hey, if Jermod McCoy's coming out, he's a first rounder, but he tore his ACL. So if he doesn't come out, he won't come out next year. He'll go into the 2027 draft, and we'll talk about him with the Jeremiah Smiths and Arch Mannings and all those things. But if he does come out, he's a top 10 pick, in my opinion. He's elite athletic upside. He's built to play man-to-man coverage, and he's very intelligent in zone coverage. So the Raiders love players that are just like big physical athletes. And I think that this would be a guy that makes a lot of sense for them. On the other side, you have the Miami Dolphins. And AJ Harris is a guy that I really love. I think he might be my favorite candidate to move up in draft boards by the end of the year. And I'm kind of biased towards all these Penn State guys, but it's not on purpose. I mean, they just happen to be really good on film, and they're going to get more flowers now that players have left, like Abdul Carter's and some of their safeties, and on offense, like of course, they're Tyler Warren. But this guy, I think, could really come in and help. One of my favorite players to climb boards, though, scrappy player, plays both corner and nickel, and they love guys like that. That's why they brought in Jalen Ramsey. Now they have Minka Fitzpatrick in the trade. Guys that can do a lot of different things. AJ Harris fits that bill, in my opinion. And we will see. I just think that this defense needs cornerbacks and safeties and guys in the secondary because they are so thin right now.
Yeah, I really like Jermod McCoy going to the Raiders here. I'm sure you would be a fan of that if that came to fruition, being a Raiders fan. Like we were saying when we were texting, you had asked me about him, and I was like, he's got X stat, Y stat. He's number 1 on PFF and something. I was like, why would he not leave? And then I was like, oh, right. One of his knees just blew up. Got to figure
Yes,
that
it
out.
did.
So
At the end of
hopefully,
late in the year, too.
right. So hopefully he can return back to peak form. And we've talked about this. Injury recovery and ACL, especially recovery, has increased by leaps and bounds. And I have much less fears than I used to if you even asked me like 5 years ago. And then with AJ Harris, I really like the fit you brought up here. 6'1", 184, like you said, can play cornerback, can also play the nickel. Will really be a good fit out there in Miami, being able to be almost a gadget defensive player.
And like I said, this is one of our guys that we're betting on and like trying to send him up boards where we think he should be. But at the same time, they could pick a different position and it wouldn't surprise me either because they do have so many holes. There's a reason they're picking 8 now, not later on in the draft.
Right.
They are falling apart, in my personal opinion, if you just look at like what's going on. And we are out on them. If you ask me and Cam, we're going to be talking about power rankings. They are not very high on our power rankings. They will be losing a lot of spots.
Yep.
So, yeah, let's talk about the next, 5 through 8. Here you go. Couple corners, a lot of DBs in this group. We know that all these teams need DBs, and so it'll be good. Let's go on though. Next up is the Indianapolis Colts, and quarterback Lenore Sellers is going to be a Colt. He is, I think that we're going to get a little backlash on this one, and I'll be honest, I get it. He is a very similar style to Anthony Richardson, who they just recently picked, number 4 overall. Lenoris, has that ability, but I want to read some stats just so everybody gets an idea. Lenore Sellers had a 65.6% accuracy this year, and Anthony Richardson only had a 53.8% coming out of college. So there are very big differences in arm talent. Maybe they move similarly as athletes. And you could tell me that Lenore Sellers is the number 1 overall pick, and I wouldn't be surprised. But you could also say that he was outside the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised. Because he's just such an anomaly. We are betting on the athleticism and the upside. And I think that if you just look at the mold of what Anthony Richardson has done in the NFL and what he did well, you get that with Lenore Sellers, but you get a much more polished passer. He had 674 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Like, Sellers is a full projection, but I'm expecting him to get better. And the Colts already have recruited and scouted his traits. They're the same traits they've seen before. So I think that they're going to fall in love with this guy if they get an opportunity to pick him at 9.
Yeah, I'm a huge Lenore Sellers fan. If he had proven more, then I'd have him even higher. As like I was saying, with my support of Klubnik. But I love the athleticism of it. I've told you I'm a big fan of just athletic QBs able to be mobile. And if he's even half as good as his player model on CFB 26, which I'm seeing people do insane plays with him, basically running around the entire pocket and then housing it for a 40-yard run on a pass play, then he is easily going to earn the number 9 draft pick.
Right, absolutely. And I do want to say he's 21.1 years old. That's next season when the year starts. So we might have a situation where he comes back to school. That wouldn't surprise me. Him and Arch Manning and Jeremiah Smith all, being in that next class wouldn't surprise me at all. So that's Lenore Sellers going to Indianapolis Colts. If they are here, that means that the Daniel Jones / Anthony Richardson situation did not pan out. Going over to number 10, a guy that I am very high on. Guy that I think, is kind of consensus too, truly. But at the same time, I think like putting him at 10 over Ruben Bain and some of these other guys, Mateo Ungavile, like you're going to be this is a guy that I'm projecting a little bit and I think will be amazing. Putting him opposite Myles Garrett too is just freakish. He's 6'6", 288 right now. He's 19 years old. Currently 19 years old, 20.9 years old when the season starts. So I'm so excited about this guy. He's not polished as a pass rusher at all, but he might be the best run stopper in the class, and he's going to continue getting better. His size plus athleticism equals ceiling. I said that on the Edge show. He is just really good right now, and I love the upside that I'm going to get out of him. He already had 7 sacks last year just based on athleticism. Give him an off season. Off season, and let this man go and work on his pass rush. I hope that he comes out 15 sacks, and he might be even higher than this when it's all said and done.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier you can't like teach height, you can't teach certain things. And there's a quote from a book called Travel Team where they say that you can't coach tall, basically.
Yeah.
And you've got a guy who's just naturally this massive human, 6'6", and he's still getting 7 sacks with a high run grade. Don't forget that part. It's not like he's
Mhm.
only a one-trick pony. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see what he can do with another year of progression under his belt.
And this was a trade. Jacksonville giving up all this pick to get up to Travis Hunter. Then Cleveland gets two studs on the D line and Mason Graham and then Keldrick Falk.
Yep.
So super excited about that. Let's go over to the next team. It's going to be the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to trade. They traded this pick in the draft, and they got James Pierce Jr. That's who they got at the 26th pick. Now they're giving up this pick, and the Los Angeles Rams are going to move up from 26 basically all the way up to 11 and get a chance to take an offensive lineman in Francis Mauigoa out of Miami. This is a situation where you have a guy in Rob Havenstein who plays right tackle, and Mauigoa plays right tackle, so I didn't mention that. But right tackle Rob Havenstein has a shoulder injury. He's a 2026 unrestricted free agent. And then on the other side, Alaric Jackson who just got a career, a really nice pay grade upgrade, who I think is a good player, has blood clot issues and could possibly be career ending. So this is a guy that can play multiple positions, is slotted at guard for a lot of people. That's why it says O-line and offensive tackle, not offensive tackle. So he could fit in guard or right tackle, left tackle. I think he just makes a lot of sense. But he's currently a right tackle, and I think that Rob Havenstein leaving, he could replace him right now.
Yep, completely agree with this one. He is number 41 on PFF's top 50 for the season, so he's earned his flowers there. And then I've seen a lot of different people actually have him as one of the first offensive tackles taken off the board. So completely agree with putting him here with number 11.
Sweet. Let's go over to 12. 12 is the Seattle Seahawks going Blake Miller, and I think that this is going to be a fun conversation to have because Blake Miller going to Clemson we talked about, it's going to have guys everywhere. They're going to be pushed up boards because they're going to play well. So it's no different here, basically, is what we're going to get at. And Blake Miller is a absolute projection. There are so many things wrong with his game right now, in my opinion. Like, there are so many things he has to fix, but I believe in him. I believe that he can do that. I think that he will improve. He only had 18 total pressures last year on 579 total snaps, and 1 sack given up. But he needs to basically improve everywhere. But he has my favorite mold of player, and that's why I bet on these guys. He has the Christian Darrisaw mold. He has the Spencer Fano mold, who we talked about at the beginning of all of this. So I think that with his potential and what his stylistically is, I like him just watching him on film. I think there's a lot of things he has to improve, but the Seattle offensive line has to improve. They just got one player in Gray Zabel, but Abe Lucas, their right tackle, has not been doing it, and I think that he could come in and replace him. There's a lot of things they need to replace on the O-line, but getting it started with Charles Cross, and then a Gray Zabel, and then a Blake Miller would be a really nice way to soup it up.
Yep. I mean, 6'6", 315 grades weren't horrible. I like that you're high on him. He obviously has a lot to prove to get to the expectations you're setting forth. But he is a former state wrestling champion. He's got the mold and the grit to go and get it. So I really hope he can step up and meet those expectations you're setting here.
Sure. Let's go check out 9 through 12. Colts go Lenore Sellers, and then we had back-to-back trades from the 2025 draft, and then the Seahawks have to continue to make their offensive line better, so they do that. Let's go on and grab the next grouping. First up, a guy that should not be here. I just did not know where to put him, and I was fighting with myself. So the Dallas Cowboys get an absolute steal. All of our Dallas friends will be very happy about this because Peter Woods is, well, he might be one of the best defensive line. He is the best defensive lineman I think we can talk about other than Mason Graham and Walter Nolan. Yeah, okay, there's two that are in the same conversation with him as the best D lineman we've watched since starting this podcast. And Dallas is getting a steal because truly they might have made one of the biggest mistakes drafting Mozzie earlier in the first round of the draft a few years ago. Mozzie Smith had a 34.8, which was 117th out of 118 defensive linemen. So this is a type of guy that can basically come in and help your defense right away. They've just re-signed Osa Odigizua, and they added some players. So I think that this could be a guy, if he falls to here or if Dallas is lower, that they will be targeting because he is so good at football. It's absolute steal. I don't know why he's here. I'm sorry. I did my best.
I was going to say, I think if anybody, whether it's Dallas or any other team, and they get the 13th pick and they don't have an absolute other need they 100% have to go to, and he's on the board, you don't have to question who's getting taken off the board next.
Right. No, I agree.
It will be him at 13 unless someone just really needs something else.
Right. And I know that, a guy like Peter Woods will probably, in playing for Clemson, like he's not the fourth best Clemson player, if that makes sense. And we have him fourth in line for Clemson players. And we're high on Clemson, like we said. I think that Peter Woods will be higher. I just didn't have a good spot to place him. Dallas, if you are at 13 and Peter Woods falls to you, please snatch this man. He's a freaking stud. So that's kind of how I feel about Peter Woods. Let's go over to the next one. I told you, I'm high on these freaking Penn State players, and I get it. Y'all are Penn State, choke art, whatever you want to say. But the Chicago Bears have to improve their defensive line. They have improved their offense multiple times in the last couple of years, but defensive line is, a tough spot for them right now. Montez Sweat, of course, is solid, but Dayo Odeyingbo was a backup in Indy, and he is now their starting right tackle. They added a young backup in Austin Booker a couple of years ago, but they just need to increase the pass rush. And I think that Danny Dennis Sutton can do that because not only does he edge rush, but he also is 6'5", 272, and is asked a lot of times to rush against guards. So you bring in a guy like this, he can play first down outside on the edge, and then he can be a situational pass rusher on the inside. I think he does a lot of good things, and I think I'm way higher on him than a lot of people. But there's a very few guys that move this well at 6'5", 272, and I think that if you're just saying who's your best D end or at this point, I think if you're talking about a 3-4 D end or a 4-3 D end, I really like Danny Dennis Sutton. There's another guy we're going to talk about here in a minute that people are going to push up boards that I'm a little bit lower on, but Danny Dennis Sutton, for his overall go, I really like.
Yep. No, I like Dennis Sutton as well.
DDS, baby.
Yeah, DDS. I like him as well. And then obviously, I don't love Penn State as much as you do, but I do like what their development has been and all the athletes and, like I said, the weapons they do produce. And he could have a very successful career in the NFL and do really well in Chicago.
Yeah. Let's go over to the next one. It is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we talked and we turned around and did all kinds of things. I think Fernando Mendoza, who we did not watch for the quarterback video and we did not talk about, I watched him later. I think he's got so much upside, and I'm very excited to see what he can do. They need quarterback. Aaron Rodgers already said this is his final season. They did add pass catchers. They added DK and Jonnu. Defense is good, but the offense has to produce. And you need quarterback. Quarterback is going to be the most important position. Like I said, Fernando Mendoza, I had an opportunity to watch his film before the quarterback video. He's going from Cal to Indiana, and he's a true pocket passer with I think he kind of resembles a little bit of Big Ben. Now, if you're going to resemble Big Ben and you're going to go to Pittsburgh, you're going to be asked to do a lot, you're going to be asked a lot. But this is projecting a guy to go from Cal and really up his game because he did only have 16 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. Of course, it's on a much worse team, but at Indiana, he has an opportunity to take an Indiana team back to what they were last year. We know Curtis Rourke, who was a much older prospect, not nearly as athletic or talented, was there and did really well. Fernando Mendoza has a lot more ability, so we will see if he can, if he can take him back to the playoffs. I think that he is a very, very interesting talk for first round.
Yeah, this is one you and I talked about for a little bit, and you're definitely higher on the projection than I am. But I am excited to see what he does on a better team. He
Right.
obviously did not have too many uh, uh, good targets out there at California with their almighty football powerhouse,
And no
and
running
with
game.
Kurt Signet. Right, right.
Jay Nott
Jay
was
Nott,
nothing last year.
no, his yards per carry was not good at all. So. But with Kurt Signetti, the guy who wins, Google him, all those amazing quotes, seeing what he did with Indiana. I do want to see what he can do and see if he can build up this projection. I'm not there right now, but I totally see why you would be.
Right, and these are all projections. So I'm guessing this is a guy I'm projecting that when he goes to Indiana, that will be the reason that he will gain that draft stock. I think Kurt Netty's obviously warranted why he's a great coach
Yeah.
and coaches quarterbacks well. So I expect him to take a guy Fernando Mendoza to possibly the first round. He took Curtis Rourke. And made him very Curtis Rourke might not have been the best talent, but he played in the system really well. But before that,
Yeah.
at James Madison, he had the quarterback that just graduated from Texas State, and I'm going to blank on my own team. That's crazy.
McLeod.
Thank you, Jordan. He knows how to do it. Jordan McLeod was the player of the year in the conference. So he knows how to coach some quarterbacks. Let's see if he can do it with Fernando Mendoza, who is the most talent of all the guys he's coached so far. Next, number 16. We're going to take the first wide receiver off the board. It will be the New England Patriots. And I don't think it's a surprise that New England needs a wide receiver. But Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, I think that there's just so many wide receivers in this room. Stephon Diggs, obviously, 79.0, but he did tear his ACL. Every other wide receiver is a wide receiver 3 or 4, in my opinion. And we still have to see what happens with Kyle Williams. But I don't know. I think that the fact that they're looking at trading for players tells me that Kyle Williams is not necessarily projecting as well as they were hoping. They did pick Jalen Polk the year before. They just have a bunch of wide receiver 3s and 4s on this team. They need to help Drake May. I think it's pretty obvious that this position is the position they need to get right. I've also seen New England take a Arizona State wide receiver in the past and N'Keal Harry. So hopefully he has a little bit better of a career than N'Keal Harry did. But one of the best intermediate route runners to most the current wide receiver 1, not consensus though by any means. And I think New England needs to find a wide receiver 1 for the future. And I think that Jordan Tyson could be that when a aging Stephon Diggs is gone.
Yeah, so I think everyone's kind of accepted that New England is going to need and will get a wide receiver with their first pick.
Either that or they'll trade.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, got to bolster that. And what's sad, I've totally forgot about N'Keal Harry because I was very high on him coming out of college. Thought he was going to have, lead on the next era for Brady. And then he just never developed once he got to New England. And I was very sad about it because I really enjoyed watching him in college. So really hoping Jordan can have a better turnout.
Fair. Yeah, N'Keal Harry became a tight end. So, and N'Keal Harry, and Jordan Tyson was pretty good last year, and returning with Sam Levitt gives him an opportunity to continue that. So I think that this is a very good opportunity for him to improve his draft stock. I think he's in the probably late 20s right now on most boards, but moving up wouldn't surprise me at all. Sure. The next, let's go over the 4 there. You got the Seahawks going Blake Miller, Danny Sutton to the Bears, Fernando Mendoza to the Steelers, and then Jordan Tyson to the Patriots. A lot of good names on here that are a lot of projections, which is a lot of fun to me. I think that that's a lot of fun is projecting these guys because we don't have enough information necessarily to understand what's going to happen.
It's like there's a whole season in the way.
Yeah. Well, Arizona, I don't think it matters. Arizona's getting Eric Singleton. Dustin's going to draft him on every best ball team because Dustin is a huge fan of Eric Singleton. I think that a lot of people are down on Eric Singleton, but just because he played for Georgia Tech and he wasn't as productive as maybe we wanted to see him. But I have the idea that going to Auburn's offense, playing next to Cam Coleman, not being the number 1 option, or not necessarily being the number 1 option, if that makes sense. Like someone else is taking some pressure away, and also having a quarterback in Jackson Arnold who's going to throw the ball rather than a quarterback in Haynes King who is looking to run the ball, run triple option. This is going to unlock him, in my opinion, as a better player. It might not be first round good, but I think he has all the explosiveness and upside ability to, warrant this. And we know that Arizona would love to upgrade their wide receiver 2. Trey McBride and Marv are there, but I think the upgrading their wide receiver 2 and giving them a gadget guy different than the guys that they have would be a really good, type of guy to get.
Yeah. First of all, you did leave off one of their top receivers, Greg Dortch, but I'll let it slide this time. Secondly, this is a projection where I completely agree with you. I love the upside of Eric Singleton and just the gadget abilities, the insane athleticism, everything he brings to an offense and just unlocks in a playbook. While having Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride out there is only going to give them more space or give him more space to do his really athletic things.
Sure, absolutely. I think that, his size might be an issue, but his athleticism is definitely not a problem at all.
Right.
18. Minnesota Vikings get running back Jeremiah Love, and he was one of the hardest players to place. We had to kind of talk about this. I knew Jeremiah Love had to be in the first round. I didn't know where to put him. I just was trying to figure it out so hard because, there's no way Jeremiah Love is not a first rounder. But at the same time, you have to get the right place. He's probably going to go in the top 12. So he's another guy that I think fell too far in our mock draft, but he was just harder to place. I think the Minnesota Vikings need another running back. Let's just be honest, guys. Aaron Jones is going to be 32 years old. He's a 2027 unrestricted free agent. And then his teammate, Jordan Mason, is also a 2027 unrestricted free agent. Jordan Mason, I don't know if he's actually good enough to be considered a starter ever. Sure. He was originally undrafted. He went to a team with an opportunity for him to play in the San Francisco 49ers. This would be such a big upgrade in a guy like Jeremiah Love on a team that really filled out their roster on defense and offense through the free agency, and now are ready to win. I think that the big thing is Jeremiah Love could fit in any offense. He will do well. He's very elusive, very athletic. I think that if Minnesota can get him at 18, it's really a steal. So,
sure.
Honestly, funny enough, all of my close friends are one Minnesota fan is a real close friend of the podcast, and then a bunch of Dallas fans, and they are getting the steals of these drafts. So, I'm trying, guys. You're welcome.
Yeah, Jeremiah Love is a victim of last year's running back draft class being so deep that a lot of teams got their running back. And That's why he's able to drop all the way to 18 here. And Minnesota, like you said, gets an absolute steal out of that whole situation because they get Jeremiah Love, who's probably better than the number 18 pick. And I am really excited to watch him this year because I've been a fan of Jeremiah Love for the last couple of years, and he just continues to impress and progress each year.
Yeah, I lean DB. I'm going to be honest. I wanted him to pick a DB, but it's you can't pass up on the talent of Jeremiah Love.
It's Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, you can't pass the talent on Jeremiah Love right here. You have to take him, in my opinion. So, Minnesota does. They get a stud at running back, and they add to that offense that is really good. So, let's go on to 19. This is the first team, just so everybody remembers, this is the first team that made the playoffs. The Houston Texans at 19 right here. They go offensive lineman Caden Proctor, and I think that this is going to be something that we have to talk about because Caden Proctor is the number one offensive lineman to most people. Not to me, and obviously that's why he's at 19 because I don't know that – I think there's other people that have abilities to project better and get better throughout the season than he does. 6'7", 369. Let's just talk about that for a second. That's huge, guys. Yeah. I think that he has issues bending. I think he has issues against speed rushers. I think he's some issues as a pass blocker. Now, he's very good. He's very talented, but we're nitpicking things. And if you're going to tell me, if I'm projecting Blake Miller and I'm projecting Caden Proctor, most people say I'm crazy to put Blake Miller above Caden Proctor. But at the same time, there's different kinds of athleticism and molds that you can get to. I think the ceiling that you have with a Blake Miller is so much higher than a Caden Proctor. Now, that doesn't mean the Texans don't need a hammer offensive line. They had the worst offensive line unit in football last season. One of the worst. I guess it wasn't as bad as New England, but you don't add. you add a bunch of, you basically did a shotgun style approach with this. You had Cam Robinson, you had Laken Tomlinson, you had Jerome Calvin, you had Ed Ingram, you had Trent Brown. You added 5 offensive linemen. You also lost a bunch of offensive linemen. And so it's like you're just doing the shotgun approach of 1-year deals and seeing who sticks. Well, Caden Proctor and Ariante Ursary, they stick. Go get those 2 guys. Massive offensive tackles. First off, Ariante Ursary is just as massive. So you get 2 massive offensive tackles that are ready to play day one. I think that is the best way to improve this offensive line. And so I think that Caden Proctor, who is most likely considered the offensive tackle 1, falls all the way to 19 in most people's boards would be considered a fall. But Texans have to go offensive line here.
Yeah, I was able to watch a lot of Texans games last year since it's one of the local teams here. So it's, what we get on TV. And every game was basically hand the ball off to Joe Mixon, Stroud throws it up to Nico or Stephon Diggs, and then immediate pass rush because the Texans have no offensive line and Stroud goes down or fumbles or what have you. So, yeah, they really need to figure out that offensive line, and I agree with, usually in general, I don't like the inefficient shotgun style of just hope for the best and keep doing it until something happens, but with how bad they've been the last year or two, they have to. They really don't have an option.
They got rid of their best offensive linemen because they didn't like the culture. Well, now they have to bring in culture. Here you go. There's your culture. Ariante Ursary on one side, Caden Proctor on the other. That's how I think you add culture. Sure. Next up is going to be the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay is going to go with Chandler Rivers, and I think this is like another projection, but I love Chandler Rivers. He's an absolute stud. Jair Alexander asked for a trade. He was instead released because they couldn't find a partner. Currently, their starters are Keyshawn Nixon and Nate Hobbs, both low 60 grades. Couple of options here. You have Avion Terrell, if we wanted to go another Clemson guy, but we didn't because we want Chandler Rivers out of Duke. And no one's going to know who he is, but when they pick him, I'm going to be super excited, okay? Super scrappy player, 90.2 in zone, willing to play outside and inside in the slot, willing tackler, and he's just a bully and competitor. And I love these types of players that are competitors, scrappy, and I think that he's just going to get so much better and make a big leap from last year to this next year. 6'2", 194, like at an outside corner with long arms. Yeah, sign me up. Absolutely, all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Chandler Rivers is awesome, and it's awesome seeing him come from Duke as well, a smaller school you don't typically think about as your high draft stock guys. But he was super impressive last year and going to be a lot of fun to watch this year.
Yep, very excited about this guy. And if you haven't watched his film, go check it out. It's really fun to watch. He's a stud. Next up, we have the recap of the... you're going to get a couple considered steals. Of course, Jeremiah Love is an actual steal. Ken Proctor is a work in progress steal. So we'll see if he continues being a steal based on all big boards. But then Dustin gets Eric Singleton added to his team, and Chandler Rivers, one of my favorite players, going to the Packers.
Yeah.
Next will be 21 and 23. 21 is going to be Caleb Banks, D lineman, going to the Denver Broncos. Denver is got some serious depth issues on the D-line. They need to add depth. Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, Malcolm Roach, all 2026 unrestricted free agents. DJ Jones is the only starter that will be returning. And Caleb Banks can play any position on the D-line because they run a 3-4. He can play both at DN spots or the nose. I think he's just such a fun player. He is a very, very interesting floor to ceiling conversation. Because, and we talked about this on the defensive line show, but he slows down throughout the games. But when he does go, he's one of the best defensive linemen in football. And I'm just projecting him to be, first off, a perfect rotational piece for any team. A chess piece that can play a bunch of positions. But he has that grown man strength. And I think that Denver needs this type of player. And I think if he does well this year, like I expect him to, he will be a first rounder. I think Denver is a perfect spot for him.
No, I completely agree
Sorry,
with that.
I forgot.
Guy's huge.
I'll talk about Ruben in a second.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's huge, 6'6", 329. I made the comparison to Desmond Watson, who was the infamous 464-pounder Florida had last year, but obviously bolsters the interior defensive line there for Denver.
Yep. And then Los Angeles Chargers, Ruben Bain Jr., they lose Joey Bosa, so obviously adding some edge rush would be great. But I think he can play defensive end. This is the guy we were talking about earlier with DDS Dennis Sutton, who could have been in that spot. I think that if you're just talking about what I'd like Danny Dennis Sutton a little bit more, but that's right now. I think that Ruben Bain, if he can return to form from his freshman year, and the calf injury is nothing, he is a absolute top 10 talent. It's just I don't know if he can get there. I don't love some of the things he does. He kind of reminds me of just like he can't play edge to me at the NFL level right now, and that's a problem. He could play defensive end in a 3-4 and be really good at it because he's 6'3", 270. He holds against the run really well, and he's got upside to be able to rush inside. But so that's why I'm a little lower. But I mean, the current defensive end starters for the Chargers are Matlock, who had a 48.9, Ogbonia, who had a 41.5, and Hand, who had a 60.5, who they just brought in. They need to upgrade both defensive end spots and an edge opposite Khalil Mack. This guy could play a lot of positions on this defense. That's why he's the perfect fit, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a guy who suffered a calf injury in the season opener last year. So hard to really see what he was able to do. But coming off 2023, where he was an ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year and All ACC third team, as a freshman, you would expect him to continue to progress from there. So hopefully he could bounce back from injury and show that progression that we're kind of expecting here.
Right, yeah. And I mean, this is kind of where I think he is without projection and also liking other guys a little more. But he could, like I said, be a top 10 player. Yeah. And if it's all said and done, because he does have that athleticism, he has to really finesse his, or really like improve and finesse his pass rush, though, to do that.
Sure.
Number 22. All right. We are just going to be slamming as many inside linebackers to Tampa Bay until they pick one. The newest one you got is Anthony Hill Jr. A lot of, what's crazy? I saw a mock draft with Anthony Hill Jr. going like 4th. And I'm like, honestly, I could see it. It's just one of those things like.
Not even mad. Oh, I see which one you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Who was it? I'm sorry. I can't remember off the top of my
head. It's ESPN's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. He has Miller. That kind of upside. He really does. Yeah. It's just the problem is I don't believe in linebackers being picked that early. That's first.
Yeah.
And then like second, like he did have some issues. 15.3% missed tackle rate. That has to come down. Now, if you want to project that gets better, sure. I'm not going to be mad at you. He's a stud. I just want to see him get a little bit better. And also, I have a hard time projecting linebackers that early. I really do. Yeah. I fight it. Running backs the same way. And you watch guys like Jeremiah Love, who's probably going to be higher. You watch, and now Anthony Hill, who probably will be higher. But at the same time, I think if this is the perfect fit, Tampa Bay needs a freaking linebacker because Levante David is 2026 unrestricted free agent. Anthony Walker had a 48, and the only other inside linebacker on the team was Servocia Dennis last season. So I really wanted Jahad Campbell to go there, and we fought that, but there were some injury issues. This guy could be a first top 10 pick, one of the most physically gifted linebackers in the class, pass rush upside and explosiveness. Like he's a stud. And I'm not going to put him down because I put him at 22. Like that is not me hating on this guy. That's me trying to figure out what to do with him because linebackers are such a hard position in the first round.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if he went a lot higher than 22. Like I said, there's the one, or like you said, mocking him at 4. It'll just come down to how he progresses, being basically the leader of that Texas front 7 this year. Secondaries already, I think they're still the number 1 according to PFF as a total unit. Their defense, I know for sure, is the number 1 defense in the country, which is not a surprise when you look at the roster. So we'll see how he does, especially like you said, the missed tackle rate being a big thing. But he improves that, and that being his 1 mark, yeah, he's going to be scary.
No, he's a stud, and I couldn't figure out where I wanted to put him, but 22 is where he goes. Sure. Maybe it's a little low. You can tell me in the chat. I know you're probably going to. It's okay, guys. But let's go over to the next guy. He's at 24 here. It is going to be John Mateer. The Rams need a quarterback to succeed their current Matthew Stafford. I think that John Mateer is a guy that is going to rise up boards. I love John Mateer. The only problem is you had to watch him at 9:45 start time at night because he played on the Pac-12 After Dark. So let's just hope that adding a Francis Mauigoa to play tackle, John Mateer to play quarterback. Matthew Stafford is entering his 17th season. He was drafted in 2009. He's 37 years old. He's a 2027 unrestricted free agent. This is the replacement year, in my opinion. And now they have 2 first-round draft picks, which they'd never even have their own first-round draft pick. Now they have 2. So all I can say is John Mateer or any quarterback that you would like. It's fine if you want to pick a different quarterback, but I do believe that this pick will be quarterback. John Mateer has some upside that I really like to see, Baker-esque upside. Yep. So he's going to be one of my favorite risers this year. Going to Oklahoma will improve his draft stock, in my opinion. They might lose some games. Don't get me wrong. They are in a gauntlet of a schedule. But John Mateer, with 15 rushing touchdowns and a 29-7 interception ratio, yeah, fine. He had some issues as a overall, like, different arm angles. He threw it underhand. There's some things out there that people want to hate on. But he's a gamer. And he is a good player as a gamer. He's not a Riley Leonard, push his team to the national championship, but probably won't ever play in the pros. This guy is going to play in the pros. It just depends where. I think that this is where I want to see him go. I think it's the most fun pick on this whole board, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is probably the best fit pick we have on the board, and that's what I was telling you, is he absolutely fits that absolute dog, absolute gamer, high arm talent prototype that Sean McVay likes. And works well in the NFL. Yes. Obviously, with the career Stafford has had, Baker kind of resurrecting his career after getting out of the pits of Cleveland. John Mateer is going to be a lot of fun to watch in college this year. And then I see him progressing and then being able to progress under Sean McVay behind a Matthew Stafford type offense will be really good for his development as well.
Yeah, don't forget Baker went and played for the Rams and won the first game after like being on the team for 3 days or something. That was crazy. Yeah. That's John Mateer, and that's the next, John Mateer is that mold in my opinion. So
yeah.
21 through 24, a couple D linemen, linebacker Anthony Hill probably fell too much, and then John Mateer going to the Rams. Hey, I know that it's not perfect. Okay. It's freaking, what is it? Today's like July 7th or something.
July
like that.
7th at the
yeah,
time.
Like it's not perfect. Okay. I get it. The next guy is wide receiver Denzel Boston. And it was a guy that I originally left off when I did a rough draft. And I said, I can't leave this guy off. I think that he is a first rounder. Sure. I didn't know where to put him, but Washington, Terry McLaurin already has talks of possibly not, being on this team at the end of this year. He's already looking at possibly going to New England because he wants a new contract, but he's older. He's like 30 years old. It's a little scary. They added Debo. Debo is a unrestricted free agent, just like Terry McLaurin in 2026. Actually, 10 out of 11 of their wide receivers on the roster are 2026 unrestricted free agents. The only one that's not is Luke McCaffrey because he was drafted last year. Denzel Boston is the ex-receiver type, contested catches, red zone targets. He's just a stud. And I think that, he fits opposite Terry, who is more versatile. You have an X and a Z. It makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, on this offense.
Yeah, good fit for this one. Good for Denzel Boston, too. Obviously, getting to go from one side of the country's Washington to the other side of the country's Washington is always fun. And then getting a chance to play with Jaden Daniels would obviously be really fun. You pair Jaden Daniels with other young athletic targets to throw to.
Fair, absolutely. Next up at 26 and 28, we got a couple of offensive tackles. Starting off on the Cincinnati side. Cincinnati, they have to improve their offensive line. We've talked about this. If I put an offensive lineman there, I think they need a new offensive lineman. One of the worst offensive lines of football, graded wise. Orlando Brown Jr., 58.2. Cordell Volson, 59.3. Ted Karras, 64.1. Like, it just goes down. Like, they're all bad. All in the mid-50s or 160. So this would be a pick where you are looking to, get rid of Orlando Brown Jr. Now, that's one of the things that you have to look. You need to replace him. He's a 2027 unrestricted free agent. He had a 49.7 run block grade. That's awful. That is just atrocious. And to replace him, you could get a guy like Isaiah World. He is 6'8", 312 pounds, moving from Nevada to Oregon to replace Johnny Cornelius. So he is transferring, and he will not be playing for Nevada. I just want to see him play against Big Ten schools, but this is a projection thing where we're expecting guys to move into the first round. They with Marvin Mims, they waited a year before starting him, so this could be a situation where they wait a year before starting Isaiah World, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think Cincinnati is one of the worst run organizations right now, and they got to get their stuff fixed, but I think it makes sense. The next team is the San Francisco 49ers. They're going to go with offensive tackle Caleb Tiernan, and he's out of Northwestern. Northwestern's not very good, but he is really good, and I enjoy watching him play. You know, the offensive line for the San Francisco 49ers, Trent Williams is going to be 37 years old. He is awesome, even at 37. I mean, he is awesome.
Yeah.
But he's got to come to an end sooner or later. That just is what it is. That's just the father time. Colton McKivitz on the other side is a 2026 unrestricted free agent. He had a 72.2 grade, which is pretty solid. And Williams, like I said, can't play forever. He's a 2027 unrestricted free agent. This would be a pick for the future.
Yeah.
I think that it makes a lot of sense, though, because he's one of the best in pass pro, moves well to fit in the outside zone scheme that they run. And he played well against good competition. Ohio State, Illinois, Michigan, all those teams he played really well against. They have to go off the tackle, and I think Tiernan is the best one on the board.
Yeah, Isaiah World, number one transfer, offensive tackle in the portal this year. Like I said, going from Nevada to Oregon should only help his progression. Makes sense with the Bengals. We can only hope if he does get drafted by them, he will actually sign his rookie contract in a meaningful amount of time. For the 49ers, like you said, they're going to need an offensive tackle. Tiernan's proven he can handle the guys who are probably going to be getting drafted on the opposite side of the ball, playing against them now. Like you said, the Ohio States, the Michigans, a good fit for a team that's just going to need an offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm. And he plays left tackle, so he would be taking over the Trent Williams side. But like I said, Colton McKivitz, also a 2026 unprotected free agent, so they have to figure out what they're going to do at both tackle spots if they're going to re-sign him or not. Next up, number 27 is Detroit Lions. They go edge Mateo Uyunglele from Oregon. He's 21.1 years old, so he's a young guy. He might not come out. He might be a 2027 guy, but that's okay. The edge position for the Detroit Lions, 7 out of 8 2026 unrestricted free agents, except Hutchinson, basically. Everybody but Hutch is a restricted free agent, but Aiden Hutchinson did get an injury. He broke his tibia and fibula this last year. Their other edge on the other side tore his tricep in Marcus Davenport, and both are supposed to be back. So we'll see. But Marcus Davenport, I would not expect to get another contract here. Josh Paschal, who was a 2022 second, has been awful. He had a 53.0 grade, 105th out of 119. It's on 613 snaps, which was the most on the team, more than the other guys above who got injured. So they got injured early enough where they didn't play as much. So it's one of those things where they need guys, and this guy fits what they like. And I thought Jack Sawyer was going to be there last year. I was wrong. Or in 2025, I was wrong. But Mateo at 6'5", 270, that's the type of player they like. I mean, I believe Aiden is 6'7". So this year will be a stepping stone just based on age. But at this point, I couldn't find a better edge that fit. And that's kind of how I went about this one.
Yeah, no, this one makes a lot of sense. I'm like you said, the injury things that are the big injuries to their edges. That Aiden Hutchinson one, I liked Aiden. I like Aiden. I'm hoping he can return, but my goodness, his leg blew up. So
It did.
I'm very concerned and not as bullish on recovery as, like I mentioned earlier. There's newer things with torn ACLs and being bullish on their recoveries. Jamad McCoy. Unfortunately, I'm not as much on Aiden. Hope he gets a full recovery. So really like Mateo at this pick, though. All that to boil down to that. I like where this fit is.
Gotcha. Perfect. Let's go over and just recap a couple offensive tackles, a wide receiver, and then Mateo going to the Lions in the last 4 picks. And then we got our last 4 picks. We're going to end it out. Kansas City Chiefs go cornerback Avion Terrell. This might be a steal. They got a steal last year in Josh Simmons. This might be a steal. Another one, he's 21 and a half years old when the season starts next year. He's 5'11", 180. His calling card is his man coverage. If we're going to talk about it, like that is why people are going to draft him. He has to get better at it though, and I think that that's a big thing at this point in his career. When you look at Kansas City, their current secondary just needs to be improved. Only 2 legitimate cornerbacks signed through 2026 or rookies. If we are considering Christian Fulton in the legitimate category. So it's Trent McDuffie and Christian Fulton as legitimate. So and Christian Fulton has moved multiple teams. So I don't know if we can. And or if he is an actual full-time starter. While Avion Terrell is a full-time starter, I also think it would be good to allow Trent McDuffie to move back inside to the nickel spot. So this would be a true outside corner guy. This is a guy that is currently considered the number 2 corner on boards, and we have him picked as the 4th overall corner. But the Clemson team is a problem because he could just move up because of that.
Yeah, so like we've said with the other ones, he's just going to be on an amazing team that's probably going to make people view each individual as more amazing rather than the sum of the parts.
Take Ohio State last year.
Right. That being said, I still like him as a cornerback. Like you said, just needs to work on that man coverage more. But with all the help he has and the other talent he has around him, he should be able to focus on that without it being too detrimental to his team at the same time.
Right. And he did give up some touchdowns and less interceptions, but I think that he will have improvements anyways, no matter what.
Yep.
I just don't know if they're top 20 improvements, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Going to the next guy, it's one of your guys. And I thought this was the most amazing pick ever when I was looking through it and I was like, yeah, we have to put Armaj Reed Adams here. Like, he is the perfect Raven. Like, there are perfect players for certain teams. He is a perfect Raven, in my opinion.
Sure.
Gave up 10 pressures, 2.8% pressure per snap. But what he is good at has nothing to do with his pressure rate. He is a bully, like the bully.
Yeah.
He's mean. He's a mean grown man, perfect for this offensive scheme. I mean, they love running downhill and just hitting you in the mouth. Here's the guy. They think they have invested so much into this like offensive line and this run game that Adams is a pick that would be a great piece because they're willing to invest basically. Power, strength, and finish is what I got on him. Andrew Voorhees, who is the left guard, is a 2023 7th rounder who had a 57.2. He was originally the backup. He is now the starter. And then Daniel Falele is 6'8", 380. So he's normally an offensive tackle. So pick a guard spot and see. And he's a 2026 unrestricted free agent. Pick a guard spot and put Armaj Reed Adams in it, and we're just gonna go and run and beat the hell out of people. That's kind of how I feel about this pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what he does on the field. It is very much explosion, strength, grit, everything you want to see in an offensive lineman. And then if you ask guys off the field, he's a great guy, great character, all that kind of stuff. Basically what you expect to hear about your good buddy offensive lineman, and then you get on the field and you don't ask about the character anymore.
Oh no,
you let them play football and move on with your day.
Amen. We want guys. We want mean offensive linemen. If you're not mean, you can't do it. You can't play the position. Next up is going to be the 31st pick, wide receiver Carnell Tate going to the Buffalo Bills. It's no surprise that the Buffalo Bills need a wide receiver. They did go with a wide receiver in Keon Coleman a couple of years ago, but right now their room is Keon Coleman, Shakir, and Josh Palmer. So I'm not sure there is a number 1 receiver in this offense right now. And so just borderline wide receiver 2s. This team makes, the most of what they have, but I'd love to see them get a true wide receiver 1. I think Carnell Tate can be that, but the problem is he plays as a wide receiver 2 currently in his offense because Jeremiah Smith is just so much more talented than everybody else. But I do think that he will step up and take over the Emeka Egbuka role. I think the talent is just going to be undeniable, basically, with this guy. And just because Jeremiah Smith is on the team, I don't think he goes overlooked based on his talent, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for Tate because he was very overlooked last year, and he made some good plays in the playoff run they had.
Yeah.
But then everyone's just like, "Who's Carnell Tate?" When he's had a pretty good year, all things considered. He just had Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith around him, and then also the 2 running backs and Will Howard playing well. So it was like, oh yeah, there's also wide receiver 3, Carnell Tate. So all that to be said, yeah, he would be a great fit for the Bills, and being able to play with Josh Allen would be very symbiotic for those two.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really a hard like I think the Bills are going to be a team where they go wide receiver. Pick your wide receiver that you like. It could have been Antonio Williams.
Yeah,
It could have been one of the other guys. Like whoever, Elijah Surratt, whoever you wanted to be
sure.
at 31 here. But I think they need to go wide receiver mostly.
Yeah.
And then 32, final pick. I think that the Eagles continue just getting talent. And I think so. Joshua Josephs is a guy we are projecting. He was our dark horse for our edge spot. He is not necessarily going to be a household name. He had 1.5 sacks this last year, and it's because he did not play very many snaps. But he is one of the best pass rushers I think that is coming out of this class. And the Philadelphia Eagles, at edge, they just keep adding edge defenders. They added Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari, but I mean, Jalix Hunt, a third rounder, had a 69 grade last year, and then Nolan Smith, a 73.9 grade. What they do is they add edge and defensive line, and that's how they just beat the hell out of people. They pay their offensive players, and they add edge and D-line. High athletic abilities, one of the best edge rushers based on first step, quick hands, quick twitch, bend. And then he did have a 91.4 run grade. Now, that is a little bit washed. I don't know that it's as good as, like truly that's where he needs to improve. But it's good to see that when he was on the field against the run, he did well based on the metrics at PFF. He has a lot of room to grow. And I just love the current trajectory. And I think he's the perfect scheme fit as a outside linebacker, but it's just what can he do this season without a Omar Norman-Lott, a James Pierce, and hopefully he gets to play more. Like, I don't know what Tennessee is doing over there, just rotating guys out. You have Omar Norman-Lott, James Pierce, and this guy. Play them, please.
So. Yeah, I feel like we're just repeating, rinse and repeat our conversation from
so
the
annoying.
Edge video, because we said the exact same thing, and I still am on the side of I don't even view Josephs as that much of a dark horse because I've seen his talent. He just isn't out there to actually show it. But since this is our last pick, my text to you when you brought these two up was crazy that Baltimore and Philly get two really good players at the bottom of the draft just because they've done so well in their previous drafts and how they've built their teams up to this point.
Yeah. I mean, it just makes it easier when you have every other position figured out, I guess. You can just add extra edges to your
Quite literally what I said was they don't have tons of needs. So they get two really good players.
So, but yeah, we went over an hour, which we were trying to keep it under an hour, but it was pretty close. We've got the Chiefs going cornerback, offensive line to the Ravens. Perfect fit, in my personal opinion. I think I'd love that fit. That's awesome. The Bills go wide receiver. Don't care who it is. Pick your favorite wide receiver. Could be Antonio Williams, Carnell Tate, whoever it is. Yep. And then edge Joshua Josephs to the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me stop sharing and we'll get out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. If y'all I would love it if y'all went into the comments and told us if you like your pick for your team, if you hate your pick for your team. Please stop just saying this was bad. Like give some, like, come on, man. Like give me a reason. Like I'll get better. Like tell me why though. And then we appreciate everybody just being around and being with us and telling us what y'all like throughout those videos. We'll be starting up Dustin's part of this off season, which will be the videos over ranking every single big Power 4 and then the top Power 5 team, non-Power 4 teams to make the playoffs, and also, just like go through every schedule for every team. So that'll be coming up. Super excited about that. That is fun for me too, but that is definitely Dustin's bread and butter and things that he likes in this process that we're doing.
Yep, it is a lot of fun just maniacally going through every team and their schedule and guessing who's going to win and what that ends up meaning in the grand scheme of things.
And probably being absolutely wrong.
100%. 100%, but I'm excited to spend my Saturdays watching 20-year-olds play football. So
Sure. Absolutely. But we do appreciate y'all hanging out with us, and we will see y'all on the next one.
Thank y'all very much.